Hi guys. I will be talking about generating common sense counterfactuals for stable relation extraction. This is a paper that has been accepted to EMNLP Main in 2023. This talks about I'm trying to do research on counterfactuals, so I thought this paper might be interesting. So the abstract here is they want to identify a problem. I'll be talking about the introduction. I will contextualize the problem, and then I will talk about what their solution is and how it works in certain settings, like their evaluation protocol. So here, yeah, this is the evaluation protocol. So yeah, and I'll be talking about counterfactual data. What is a counterfactual? Counterfactual is we're talking about what if scenarios. So if I had studied more, then I would have passed the exam, or if I had invested that money in that stock, I would be 10 times richer or something. So we're talking about what if scenarios, alternate universes, I guess. So usually it has an if and then structure, but not necessarily in this context. I think this is the trivial cases where it's very obvious, but here the paper talks about more subtle cases where you have the original caption eggs were moved into buckets, and the counterfactual would be eggs were caused by buckets and eggs were contained in buckets. So these two statements, although they don't make sense, they're considered counterfactuals according to this paper. So this is in the field of relation extraction. And I think relation extraction and causal reasoning. So it's somewhere in the middle. And you in relation extraction, you must keep the entities the same. You can't change it. And you want to keep the new relation common sense plausible. So the problem is, as this abstract says, here, recent studies on counterfactual augmented data have achieved great success in the coarse-grained natural language processing tasks. However, existing methods encounter two major problems when dealing with the fine-grained relation extraction tasks. One is that they struggle to accurately identify causal terms under the invariant entity constraint, which we'll talk about, and the other is that they ignore the common sense constraint. So what does that mean? So the invariant common sense constraint is you want to keep the same two entities, and the common sense constraint is you want to keep the relation plausible for those entities. So here we have an example, side-by-side example with the same entities. You have eggs and buckets. So here we have the sentence eggs were contained in buckets. So we have the same entities eggs and buckets, right? Is it common sense? Is it plausible? Yes, it makes sense, right? So you have a bucket and then you have eggs in it, so it does make sense. So content container makes sense. So here you change the relations, caused by buckets. So you have the same entities, eggs and buckets. Is it common sense? No, it is implausible because buckets don't cause eggs. So so this does not make sense. So now here we have a different one where we actually slightly change the entity. So we're changing the invariant entity. Oranges were contained in buckets. So you change from eggs to oranges. This is still plausible, and then here we have oranges were caused by buckets. So the entities changed, the oranges were changed, and then the common sense constraint is violated because we don't understand what this means. Wait, what do you mean oranges caused buckets? That makes no sense in the real world. People have no idea what this means. So the paper argues that counterfactuals is difficult because LLMs, I assume they struggle to identify causal terms precisely. So what their contribution is, they want to precisely identify the entities and the relations. So what they do is so here, they talk about causal terms identification. To meet the requirements of minimal perturbations, right? So minimal editing, this is a fancy word for editing. The causal terms should be identified precisely. So they focus on precision. So I guess their idea is if you have a sentence, they want to like get a surgeon knife and like basically identify what to cut and what not to cut, and then leave everything else the same. So they want to do that. So what they do here is, we'll move on to the solution, is like they'll talk about the main contribution. So you have the causal term identification, relation expansion, and then controlled editing. This isn't like third parts. I think this is their pipeline. So in high level, they want to identify the causal terms. Like here, eggs were moved into buckets. So they want to identify the causal terms. Yeah, so it would be eggs and then buckets, right? And then here in the relation expansion, they want to get the relationship, like were like discover plausible alternative relations for the same entity pair. This is what they want to do. They want to get like potential relations, like removed into and contained in. So contained in would be like an example of a relation expansion. And then here they have the control editing. So they mask like the relations. They keep the entities the same because you know what the causal terms are. You know what the relations are. So you leave the causal terms the same, and then you mask the relations. And then you feed this into the editor model, and then this editor model knows only to pick among the potential relations. So you get eggs were moved into buckets and eggs were contained in buckets. So you get a list of like counterfactuals, right, with the same like causal terms. So this is what they're doing. So just to get a little bit of detail here, what they're doing here is like, if you feed the sentence eggs were removed into buckets, you mask this out into an LLM interpreter BERT, right? And then it generates like it proposes edits. What it basically does. So it proposes from. So it removes into, and then it suggests from. And then they change the sentence. Eggs are removed into buckets into eggs were removed from buckets, right? So into has changed into from, right? So I think there's a label here, and then like if the label indicates that it has switched, then that means it is a causal term, right? So then it is a cause. So what they do next is like they feed this sentence into a constituency parser, and then I guess it generates like a tree of like how the sentences can be represented. It's like were removed into, right? And then what they do is like they want to do minimal verb phrase editing. So they do removed into, and then what they do is like eggs were removed into buckets. So they know that this is part of the sentence. So yeah, they now know that eggs and buckets are the causal terms because removed into can be changed. So now in the relation expansion, what they do is like they use WordNet hypernyms. Hypernyms is like is a tree hierarchy where like you have like a primate as the top, and then humans, like more specific things like in the bottom. And I think you generate you discover plausible alternative relations for the same entity pair, and then you do a bottom-up retrieval. So you have a foodstuff container, right? So you only go up into the topmost K. You do a bottom-up retrieval because we want to narrow down the search space. So if we do bottom-up, like we only look at the most relevant ones. So now we know that these are potential relations. I'm a little bit fuzzy on this part. If anyone can like help me figure it out, I think that'd be helpful. And then what you can do is yeah, so you have various like relations, and then this editor model, I think it's this LLM model or some sort of transformer model, you mask the relations, you feed this into the LLM, and then this knows how to like generate removed into, contained in, like as like potential candidates for counterfactuals. So they're claiming that this is useful in low resource or like tiny training data settings, out of domain settings, and like adversarial attack settings. So I didn't mention this, but like in the beginning, they were saying that like LLMs like doesn't really understand causal relationship. What they do is like they just correlate. Like if X and Y are together, they just group them together because it's like a probabilistic model, right? So we want, like, I think the goal is like they want to teach the LLMs like the subtleties in language and all the causes. So if like if you feed in eggs were removed into buckets and eggs were contained in buckets, then like it can somehow like understand like these two are different things. Yeah, so I think they say like it's the usual jazz. Like they say like they beat like the state of the art stuff. They improve like all their how amazing their performance is, right? So they have original, this, and then CCG, right? So like they beat all their models, right? So it's like how amazing what they're doing. They do like 2-shot, 4-shot, 8-shot, 16-shot, 32-shot performance, and this is like, I guess I have to like understand what this exactly means. I'm not sure what the percentages. Yeah, so I think this is a very interesting paper. And then they do like an ablation study, meaning like they slowly remove like parts of the CCG framework, and like they can see like their performance degrades, which is like a classic part of like papers nowadays. So yeah, so this is what they're saying. I wish I could like verify this a little. I'm not sure like how they're comparing with this. Like that's a little bit unclear to me. There's a lot of details going on here because like you generate the sentences, but I guess like what I don't fully understand is like in a counterfactual like friendly world, like all of these are correct sentences. So like I don't understand what they're trying to beat. Like nothing is like considered like correct or not incorrect. So that's like what I'm a little bit fuzzy on. Like I don't understand where these numbers are coming from. Like yeah. So I guess like I understand like in low resource settings and out of domain settings, adversarial attack settings, like these are like important, but like what exactly are they trying to do? Like I know it's a benchmark, but yeah. So here, I think it's nice to talk about the limitations because I'm trying to write a paper in this domain. It says, despite the effectiveness of relation expansion module for mining common-sense relation CCG, the granularity of WordNet can affect the accuracy of the results, and WordNet as a static knowledge graph also faces the issue of temporal relevance, which makes it challenging for our method to handle emerging concepts. Therefore, we plan to integrate the principles of our algorithm with LLMs at a deep level, as these models encompass rich knowledge. It's a pipeline framework. Yeah, that is correct. It is a pipeline. Yeah, so we plan to explore this direction. It's a nice paper. I think it's very creative. I like the precision that they talk about, because instead of like randomly like if I give an analogy, like let's say like a cancer has formulated in a patient, and then they only want to like cut the cancer cell and not cut like, let's say, like the whole leg off. They want to cut like only like couple cells off the leg. So I think like all this fancy jazz, like while very complicated, I think it like helps them like precisely identify what they want to change. So, and it's also scalable. So that's like where the importance of I think this is where the contribution of this paper highlights. Yeah, it's like precise and scalable. Yeah, in terms of like counterfactual data. So thank you.